Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, all you rock dwellers, all you sycophants, all you stinkos, and of course, all you hateful people who celebrate the president. You're welcome to, and this is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network, and joining me today as my co-host is Rick Manning, president of Americans for Limited Government. Rick, welcome back. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Rick. It's always a pleasure, and whenever you call or George calls or any of the hosts call, I'm always happy to be on. I really treasure the time I got to be one of the commandos on a regular basis, and the opportunity to be back on and share your air and talk to your listeners. It's always a pleasure. It's always fun.
Well, Rick, the pleasure and the honor is ours, mine in particular, for joining us today. Rick, I cannot believe where this country is right now. I really can't. You know, think back just 2 months ago. Think back just 2 months ago where our country was, the greatest economy in the history of world. There were more jobs than people to fill them. Things were growing great. Along comes the Chinese flu, and now we're seeing these riots going rampant across America. My gosh, how the other side of the coin is surely turning itself, is showing itself. How the coin has turned in a flash overnight, basically.
Well, effectively what happened was we let the white lab coat guys start making policy decisions, and the policy decisions they've made have been wrong. And as a result, we went from having an economy that was unparalleled in the history of the world to between 30 and 40 million people unemployed. We know we've had over 40 million unemployment claims, although some of those people have gotten jobs subsequently because of some states have started back up again in the last couple of months, or last month, well, thank God. So, but, Goldman Sachs, get this, Goldman Sachs says that our economy is going to shrink by a minimum of 25% in the second quarter. 25%, 1/4. What that means is an economy of about 20 trillion will be at 15 trillion. Okay, if the economy was at 22 trillion, it'd be at 16 trillion. Now, think about that. $16 trillion economy, but we've just spent huge amounts of money to try to get out from this mess that we created by shooting our economy in the head. And we just spent an extra $2 trillion. Nancy Pelosi wants to spend $3 trillion on top of that. We had already had a budget deficit that was figured to be of $1 trillion anyway. So when you get down to it, we're looking at nearly a $30 trillion deficit at the end of this fiscal year, with an economy of between 15 and 16 trillion. Take that on a worldwide level, Rick. We had a world economy was $86 trillion before this started. If there's a 25% cut in the world economy, it brings the world economy down to 65, 66 trillion. Okay, we will have $30 trillion of debt in a 66 trillion world economy. We will be borrowing at least $10 trillion into a 66 trillion total net wealth in the world. What that means is that investment dollars are going to be chasing massive numbers of U.S. debt, and when they buy U.S. debt, what they're not buying, they're not investing in companies, they're not investing in any of the stuff that grows an economy. It essentially sucks all of the investment out.
Wow.
And that's why the danger here is if we don't succeed in getting the economy moving rapidly this summer, getting your kids back to school in September, August or September, if we don't succeed in doing those things, we will find ourselves in a vicious cycle of despair where we have more suicides, we have more people mentally ill, more people who are taking drugs and dying in drug overdoses. We will find people dying of diseases because they don't go to the doctor, because they can't right now. We are going to be seeing more deaths as a direct result of the policies that many of these governors are pursuing than we ever would from the Chinese released virus and its effects. And that's just one piece of the puzzle. But we are going to find ourselves in a position where we're going to be soaking up so much of the investment capital in the world that there won't be any left for Ma and Pa to be able to open up that small business that they want to, and the one that was abandoned because that business owner went out of business because they weren't allowed to get revenues for 3 months. So that's the danger, is we are creating a negative economic cycle. And if we don't get back on our feet rapidly and start punching as an economy, and the government doesn't get out of the way, we are in deep trouble.
Rick, I totally agree with that. This is a self-induced depression. We've not seen numbers like this as far as people unemployed since 1929. And I think the year 2020 will be remembered not for the Chinese flu, not for the Chinese virus, but the start of the Second Great Depression. Keep in mind, it took 16 years and a world war to get us out of the Great Depression of 1929. God knows what it's going to take to get us out of this one, Rick. And I really do think that a lot of these jobs are not going to come back. A lot of these small businesses, mom and pop businesses, they're not going to be able to make it through this 3 month of government imposed shutdown.
No,
And it angers me so much, Rick Manning, that you got governors like Governor Phil Murphy, who says to the New York Giants and the New York Jets, by the way, both of them play and practice in New Jersey, oh, you guys can practice, but you know what? You people that want to go to church, nah, it's too dangerous for you to go to church. Rick,
yeah.
what has happened to our freedoms, to our freedoms of liberty, our freedoms of worship? This is devastating on more fronts than people can even imagine.
I couldn't agree more. And when you get down to it, it's shocking to me how easily people gave up their freedom, and how much people are because of fear of being driven by fear, how they are really engaged in practices that are absurd. Let me tell you, Rick, the thing that's most frustrating to me, and this is personal, and I haven't shared this with very many people. My stepsister is in a rehabilitation center in California. That rehabilitation center had COVID introduced into it. She is now on the COVID side of the
oh my gosh,
where she's been tested positive for COVID. She fortunately is asymptomatic at this juncture, which is a real praise and a blessing. And I'd ask everybody to pray for my stepsister Terry, because prayer really does matter. But here's the thing that drives me nuts: the Gavin Newsoms of the world, the Cuomos of the world, the Phil Murphys of the world. You know what they did? They injected the COVID virus directly into the one place we had to protect people from getting it, into those kind of nursing homes and rehabilitation centers. They were the most vulnerable populations. They injected that virus, and they knew what they were doing. And everybody knew from the case in Evergreen, Washington, where we were watching those horrible numbers of deaths coming out of Washington at the very beginning of this thing, that it was in fact it was at a nursing home. That's where the danger was. The president said, we need to stop the nursing home stuff, but the states are where the control is. And the states decided, a guy like Cuomo put out a mandate that those places, that nursing homes had to take COVID patients. And they had to take them. That was
in New York. In New York, upwards of 25 to 40% of the deaths from this Chinese flu are nursing home patients. Hey, Rick, got to take a break, and on the other side of the break, we'll tell our listeners and our viewers who our guests are and the topics for our conversations will be. But this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We'll be right back with our guest list right after this break.
Mom, thank God you're going to be okay.
So relieved. But you both should know when my time comes, I have a final expense policy with Senior Care USA.
Is Senior Care USA the life insurance policy that helps loved ones pay for funeral expenses and other debts? Bill and I called to get more information.
Yes, and there's an immediate payout of up to $50,000.
If you're over 50, call Senior Care USA now to learn more about final expense insurance plans.
There's no medical exam, even if you have a pre-existing condition like I do. When I called, the quote was free, and there was no pressure.
I found out that policies start for as little as 35 cents a day. Rates will never increase and coverage won't decrease.
I'm going to call today.
Ask about the free prescription discount card. Oh, so glad you'll be taken care of.
Call 1-800-822-7419. That's 1-800-822-7419.
But is it? It's really just the beginning, right? Have you written a book and want it published but don't know where to start? You're not alone. Page Publishing cuts through the confusion that most new authors face, like copyright protection, barcodes, printing, and digital uploading. We will get your book into bookstores now. We guide you through the publishing maze and help you distribute and sell your work in hard copy and ebook formats. That's right. We will digitize and place your book for sale on Amazon, Apple iBooks, and Google, offering it to millions. Don't waste another minute. Most publishers won't even look at new author submissions, but we're different. We review your book and provide you feedback in about a week. If we decide to publish your book, your work ends and ours begins. From copy editing and proofing to typesetting and book cover art, our team gets you into bookstores fast.
Call 1-877-461-5033.
Does your current bathroom need to be updated immediately? Introducing one-day bath and shower remodeling. The complete and hassle-free way to get the new bathroom of your dreams in as little as 1 day. And for as little as $199 a month. Yes, the experts at One Day Bath and Shower Remodeling will come to you anywhere in the country and show you all the customized options. Now you can have a brand new bathroom in as little as 1 day. Large or small bathrooms, if you want a new bathtub or shower installed, we can do it in as little as 1 day. And if you call right now, you can save $750 off your remodel. We make it easy by offering you financing as low as $199 per month. So for as little as $199 a month, you can finally have the bathroom of your dreams. Call now to schedule your free in-home consultation.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning. Rick is the president of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And the hallmark of our show being our guests. We got three great guests joining us once again here on Conservative Commandos. First one is going to be Congressman or former Congressman Paul Broun. Dr. Brown represented the 10th Congressional District in Georgia for 8 years, and he's going to be joining us to discuss the riots and President Trump declaring Antifa a terrorist group. Also, we're going to have Hans von Spakovsky from the Heritage Foundation joining us, and we're going to be talking about why the push for an all-male election is unwise and necessary. And also, we're going to have Jack Hanney from the Patriot Gold Group joining us to talk about why should people want to go back to work when they're being paid more on unemployment. Crazy idea, but there it is. So, Rick, want to thank you once again for sitting in as my co-host. And what else is new on your radar screen today, my friend?
Well, I have to say this because with the introduction, you talked about all male elections, and I kind of find it ironic on the 100th year anniversary of the 19th Amendment, where women were able to vote, that suddenly the left wants to have all male elections. I'm just very confused. But having said that, I think there's really something to concern, and we're all focused on what's happening in the streets, what's happening with the riots, and I think people need to start taking this thing and thinking about it in a few different ways, and kind of the visceral reaction. And I will admit, Rick, that for the last few days, I particularly this past weekend, I literally sat there and did nothing but follow this and got more and more depressed about where our country was. And on Monday morning, when I was driving into work, I was thinking about it, and my wife kind of kicked me in the tail a little bit Monday morning too, and it was clear to me a single thing, that God's in control, and that we can spend all the time we want worrying about the stuff, but God's in control. He sent his son to a cross, so we don't have to climb up on the cross, and so it doesn't have to be our concern where it overwhelms us. What we do need to do is we know that there's hearts that need to be healed. There's people who need to be healed, whether they be afraid of a confrontation with a law enforcement officer, or they're a law enforcement officer who fears for their lives. There's hearts that need to be healed on all sides of this equation. And there's only one way to heal those hearts, and that's through Jesus Christ. And so there's something we can do. We can pray for a healing. We can pray that God could start blessing our nation again, that God gives us the power and the knowledge to do what we should do and how we can reach out to be a healing influence rather than a negative influence. And so, yes, so that's really a significant thing that we all can do. Now, on a secular level, we know that Antifa, and we're going to talk about this later in the show, but we know that Antifa is driving the violence, and the people who are funding Antifa are driving the violence. And that's why the president rightfully declared Antifa a terrorist group, domestic terrorist group. Here's what we need to do is we need to insist that our local law enforcement join with the FBI in rooting out these Antifa terrorists and arresting them during the daylight, so they never get to hit after dark when they feel comfortable in their black outfits to go and break into buildings and set buildings on fire and destroy our national monuments and try to pull the legs out from under our country. We need to have them identified, we need to have them arrested, and we have to interdict this revolution that's being undertaken against our nation. And that's something which the local governments need to do with the FBI's assistance. And fortunately, Bill Barr, not Bob Barr from Georgia, Bill Barr, the Attorney General, is making that a priority. The question is, will Christopher Wray, the FBI director, get off his tail and start doing his job?
I can't believe that guy's still FBI director. I would have hoped by now President Trump would have gotten rid of this guy. Rick, there's another thing.
Last time he got rid of an FBI director, he got impeached. So it's probably not. He's probably not looking forward for that.
Well, Rick, I think there's another way that Americans can help themselves. That, as I said, this is like the Great Depression of all Great Depressions. I don't care what you want to call it, when you've got 40 million people out of work. Americans need to ask themselves a question. Who has the policies of the candidates out there, or the potential candidates out there? Who has the policies to make America great again? Is it the policies of Joe Biden? Is it the policies of Hillary Clinton? Is it the policies of Michelle Obama or Barack Obama? Or is it the policies of Donald Trump? And I would say it's the policies of Donald Trump, because he gave us the greatest economy in the history of the world. He has the track record. And that's what America needs to do to move forward, to ensure our future, to ensure that future generations have it as good or better than we have. Let's not hope that the next generation is not going to have it as good as our generation has had it. And our generation having a better way of it than our parents and our grandparents. Let's hope that's not let's hope that the American people see this for really what it is. It is a depression. It is a tragedy on so many aspects, and that Donald Trump has the policies to make us great again. I want to say something else. When it comes to people rioting in the streets over what happened for George Floyd, that was terrible. And as you've said, Rick, that was just a bad rogue cop. And there's a lot of them out there. I, as a white man, have had run-ins with bad cops. Hey, when I was a young kid and drove junkers, I was getting stopped every week, left and right. And during that time, I met a lot of cops. Some very nice, some not very nice. Some of those cops were white. Some of those cops were black. I mean, there's good and bad in all aspects. But to go and destroy your city, your neighborhood, this is just an excuse, Rick Manning. It is an excuse for people to be lawbreakers, plain and simple.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. It's, the time, America's gotten the point in terms of George Floyd, but you can't actually have any discussion about what to do about it as long as people keep on burning down the cities. And anybody who truly wants to try to get to the bottom of what can be done to try to make certain we root out the bad elements in our law enforcement community while not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. The people who actually want to do that and honestly want to do that, they need to reject these outside agitators and say, you're not welcome here, and not become the front for them to hide behind, because they never stand in the front of the crowd. They stand behind. They break glass, they break windows, they shoot fireworks at the cops. They are behind the people who are legitimately protesting, and those people are being used as patsies for these violent thugs. And remember, the word thug, President Obama tried to redefine that word as being a word that had racial connotations. It does not. These white idiots who are running around, the Democratic Socialists with their Antifa outfits, are running around busting everything up. They are thugs, and they can't be treated, and they have to be treated just like that. But ultimately, George, we all need to pray for our country, for unity, that God reaches and blesses our country. And the other thing, every single person, if you need to go somewhere, if you need to hire somebody local. Hire a local electrician. Go to a local restaurant. There's nothing against chains, but now's the time to help those people who are struggling the most, and those are the people who don't have a lot of corporate backing and weren't able to get, in many cases, the PPP loans.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, we got to go to a break and get our first guest on, and you are listening to and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Congressman Paul Broun. He represented the 10th Congressional District in Georgia, and we're going to be talking about the riots and President Trump's declaring Antifa a terrorist group. Don't go away. We'll be right back right after this break. Thank you, Rick Manning.
Attention homeowners. Do you have a house that's in need of serious repairs? Do you have tenants that never seem to make their monthly payments? How about code violations, past due taxes, or maintenance costs you just can't afford? Then call my friends right now at Quick Cash Offer. They specialize in buying any home, no matter how ugly the situation. Turn that problem property into cash right now. It's just that simple. One call and you can get rid of that home headache forever. They buy the ugliest houses with instant closings, instant cash, and huge savings. Plus, there are no realtor fees, no listing fees, and no repair costs. Just cash in your hands for that painful property. They're buying a few more houses in your neighborhood this month. So take advantage of this cash offer and call Quick Cash Offer now.
855-296-8854. 855-296-8854. That's 855-296-8854.
Listen carefully. If your student loan debt is overwhelming you and things seem hopeless, we've got great news.
If you're still struggling with your student loan debt, there are government programs available that may actually lower your payments by consolidating your federal student loans. Just call us. We'll review your situation and work with you to consolidate your debt. In many cases, depending on your situation, we can lower your monthly payments in half or more. It doesn't matter how much you owe or how far behind you are. Even if you're in default, call us right now to find out how we can lower your payment in half immediately. You can stop the harassing phone calls and the wage garnishments. All you need to do is pick up the phone and call us right now. We can remove your default status, consolidate your federal student loans, lower your payments, and we can do it today. Stop worrying. This is a real solution that can help. So please call us right now.
Call 800-917-8671.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you and all seniors from the Final Expense Insurance Hotline. The average funeral costs about $7,000, even more. And the most government benefits will pay your family is only $255. That leaves your loved ones with a burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay up to $30,000 for your funeral and other final expenses. There's no medical exam and you'll have lifetime coverage. Plus, your rates will never increase and your plan cannot be canceled regardless of your medical condition, as long as you make your premium payments. Get free information right now. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 855-221-7334.
Do you have an idea for an invention, but you don't know what to do next?
How do you get in front of companies or get a patent?
Call InventHelp. They've been helping inventors just like you for 35 years.
And thousands of people contact them every month.
With 65 offices, you can meet with an InventHelp representative near you who will keep your idea confidential and explain their invention process step by step. InventHelp has helped over 10,000 inventors get patents. And they offer 3D animations and prototyping services to help demonstrate your idea. InventHelp's exclusive databank includes over 9,000 companies who have agreed to confidentially review new ideas, like yours.
Don't wonder what to do next. Take action right now and get the help you need from InventHelp.
InventHelp. Call today for free information.
800-880-2937. That's 800-880-2937 now.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning. Rick is the president of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our show, check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. Be sure to like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Longtime friend is back with us, former Congressman Paul Broun. He's a primary care physician. He represented the 10th Congressional District of Georgia for 8 years, and while serving in Congress, he was appointed to the House Homeland Security Committee, the House Committee on Natural Resources, and he served as the chairman of the Investigations and Oversight Subcommittee for the House Science and Technology Committee. Dr. Brown, welcome back to Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Thanks, Rick. It's always a pleasure and a tremendous blessing to me personally to be with you and with your other co-hosts. I think the world of you, and I think the world of all the rest of them. And I've just got a new friend today, and I'm just tremendously glad to meet Mr. Rick Manning, who is co-hosting with you, and it's just great to meet him, because if there's ever been a guy who has fought for limited government in Washington, that's Paul Broun, and that's what I'll do.
Well, Dr. Brown,
your record speaks for itself. You truly are a warrior for limited government, and it is truly appreciated. Everybody who loves limited government ought to go to paulbrown.com, right? paulbrown.org, paulbrown.com, and check it out.
Yeah, and let me remind you, my family either can't spell or can't pronounce. I'm not sure which, but it's B-R-O-U-N. Some people want to make it an A since it's a U, but it's PAULBROUN.com. They can check me out. They can contribute, upper right-hand corner. They can click on the donate button. Rick Trader's nodding his head because he's already donated, and I greatly appreciate his doing so. And Rick Manning, I'd appreciate your contribution, and all of our viewers, please go on paulbrown.com and contribute. The election's just a week from now, so we're in the crunch time, and I need as much in the way of financial resources as I can get to get our message out. In fact, I fought against the out-of-control government, out-of-control spending when I was there. In fact, I introduced more targeted spending cuts than any other member of Congress. Rick Trader knows my 4 questions. Is it constitutional according to the original intent? Is it moral and right? Do we need it? Can we afford it? So I voted according to that. If it wasn't one of the enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8, I didn't vote for it. And I wrote bills such as one to get rid of Obamacare, and the only Republican bill that actually is going to solve the problems with the cost of health insurance and all good health care, all the health care goods and services. I wrote a bill called the Department of Education Elimination Act. We've got to save the education system in this country by getting rid of the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., save those dollars in our states. Let's pay our teachers more. Let's let teachers teach. Let's get rid of Common Core. Let's get rid of all this dumbing down of our students across America, and it's absolutely critical. But you didn't call me about the Department of Education. We called about something else.
Well, Dr. Brown, I'll tell you the one thing that I'm disappointed is you mentioned your 4 pillars, because I couldn't mention your 4 pillars, because I would have liked to said something like, conservatives out there, if you really want to get behind somebody who's running for Congress, and by the way, it doesn't matter if this person's in your district or in your state, it doesn't matter, because when he gets to Washington, every time he votes for all of us in America, and that's Dr. Paul Broun. And again, his 4 pillars are: is it constitutional, a proper function of government? Is it morally right? Is it something we need? And can we afford it? I mean, is not the principles of conservatism? If it isn't, I don't know what is.
That's right.
But Dr. Brown, you know, talking about out of control government. Right now, many parts of our country are out of control.
Absolutely.
I mean, the rioting, the looting, the violence. But I wanted to talk with you about President Trump declaring an Antifa a terrorist group. Number 1, great for him. Number 2, why is it taking 3 years? This is something that should have been done a long time ago. What's your take?
Well, Antifa are a bunch of Marxist thugs. Antifa, I guess, is short for anti-fascist, but they are fascist or communist. They are Marxists. They believe in socialism. They're thugs. They're burning America down in major cities as well as smaller cities. Here in Georgia, just in my congressional district in Gainesville, Georgia, just Saturday, some I think Sunday, and they're planning on tonight even having demonstrations there. They start out with some peaceful people who are absolutely mad because of a person being killed in a very horrific way and shouldn't have been killed. We've got to have police reform. There is absolutely no question that we've got to have police reform. We've got to have everybody in this country treated equally under the law, whether they're black or white or brown or whatever. You know, the legal system should be totally blind. In fact, the statute has Lady Justice blindfolded, and that's the way it should be. And for George Floyd to be killed the way he is just absolutely, totally unacceptable to everybody and anybody. But what happens in Atlanta, and we've seen it the last several nights, what happened in Gainesville the last couple of nights, is you have some peaceful demonstrators, and then they tend to go on off, and then you have these thugs come in that cause all these problems. They're purposefully burning buildings. They're looting stores. That absolutely does not honor George Floyd or anybody else that's been killed by rogue policemen. Most policemen in this country are great people, and we can't paint them all as being out of control and bad folks, because they're not. Most of them want to just do their job, but you have a few bad actors, and you've got bad actors in everything. I'm a medical doctor. You've got bad doctors. They're bad lawyers. They're bad politicians. They're bad everybody. And let's weed them out and get rid of them, and let's have a criminal justice system that makes sense and that treats everybody in this country with respect. But let's arrest and get these thugs out of society's way, because they're hurting people. We had one guy run over by an ATV, policeman run over by an ATV. We had in Dallas, Texas, there were 11 cops that were ambushed. 5 of them were killed, and I don't know initially those reports. This cannot go on.
No, it can't.
We've got to have some stability and peace, and really Jesus is the only answer. All this, Rick, I blame on the U.S. Supreme Court. When beginning in the early 60s, they said, God, you're not welcome in this country anymore. We're going to spit in your face. We're going to establish secular humanism. Man is going to be God himself.
Right.
And that's exactly what we see going on with Antifa. That's what we see going on with these mass killings in schools, the guy in Las Vegas, all of it, the killing of a policeman, all of it is based on the fact that the Supreme Court, starting with Engel versus Vassell in the early 1960s, said, God, you're not welcome in America anymore, and we're having these kind of problems today because of that, and it's just got to stop.
Dr. Brown, you're absolutely right, because if everyone, both sides, all sides, would follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, we would not be having this problem at all.
Absolutely.
But we got about 2 minutes left in this segment, Dr. Brown, but I really wanted to talk, I wanted you to give us your thoughts on President Trump declaring this group, Antifa, a domestic terrorist group.
Well, they have been for a long time. You saw what they did in Portland, Oregon, and have done that thuggery and have been hordes of out of control, totally anarchist type of individuals. And that's what Antifa is all about. I'm glad that President Trump finally declared them a terrorist group, because they really are. They are a domestic terrorist group, and law-abiding citizens in this country have their safety in great jeopardy if they're continuing to operate the way they've been operating for the last several years. It's just got to stop. And I'm glad that President Trump did declare them as a terrorist organization. Now, a lot of people on the right are real concerned that we might go to martial law with all this going on. And God forbid that happens. I don't want to see that happen either. People need what I call a liberty machine. They need to have some kind of firearm to be able to protect themselves. And what's going on today is absolutely a great indication that people need to be able to protect their lives and their property with whatever force it takes, not beyond what is necessary, but whatever force it takes. And people have to stand up and be able to protect their stores or protect their homes or protect their family and themselves. And the only way to do that is be able to have a firearm to be able to do so.
I just saw a video just before we started the show today. I saw a video, a bakery. This was a bakery in Cleveland, Ohio. And by the way, I'm going to make an executive decision here because I can. We're not going to take our break because I think this is such an important topic. This is such an important subject. Rick Manning and Dr. Brown, we're going to go right through the break. But just before we started today's show, I saw a video. And this video was outside of a bakery in Cleveland, Ohio. There were 3 guys there who were well armed. Nothing happened to that bakery, but there was some thug outside videotaping these 3 well-armed gentlemen and saying, well, what are you worried about? You've got insurance, don't you? But it goes far beyond that, Dr. Brown. Mm-hmm. Rick, it goes far beyond that. People put their lives into their business. They put their hopes, their dreams, their prayers into the business. And to have it destroyed, because you have insurance, this is ridiculous. And Dr. Brown, I guarantee you, 6 months from now, there's going to be studies about this violence. And one of the things in the study will be, and you can bet your last dollar on it, well, these people are rioting because they feel that they don't have opportunities. Well, damn it, they're burning down their opportunities. Right. And that really, really angers me.
You're absolutely correct. We had the lowest unemployment rate for all the minorities ever in the history of this country before this Wuhan flu debacle started. And I call it a debacle because there's no reason that we should have ever shut down our economy with this. And I believe Dr. Fauci is an anti-Trumper. He's trying to take Trump out where the Russian collusion hoax didn't and the impeachment did. And I think Dr. Fauci and the swamp in the CDC, NIH, and FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, are trying to take President Trump out. I really believe that. And when I'm going to reclaim my gavel of the Investigation Oversight Subcommittee on the Science Committee, and I'm going to investigate China. I'm going to investigate the World Health Organization and what our response has been here. And this that's going on, you're absolutely correct, Rick. We'll look into this, and I think if we ever do get to the truth, we're going to find George Soros and the anarchists and the socialists, the communists, the Marxists are funding these people. We already know people were bussed into Atlanta. Right. Let's talk just a few moments ago to a friend of mine, a black reverend who's on the square in Marietta, Georgia, just north of Atlanta. And he has talked to some of these people who are there demonstrating. And he found one from Puerto Rico and one from Maine and one from other places in this country. They were busted in here just to cause all this damage and this anarchy that's going on today. Somebody's paying them. And they're saying, in fact, I've seen some videos of that too. So we've got to arrest the people who are behind all this and get rid of them.
We do. In fact, I'm looking here, AG William Barr has instructed all 56 regional joint Terrorism Task Force to search out and apprehend Antifa leaders across the country. Rick Manning, I think that this is a very good move. And by the way, let me reintroduce our guest. Our guest is Dr. Paul Broun. Dr. Broun served 8 years in Congress, representing the 10th Congressional District in Georgia. Rick, I've been wondering for years, where is the investigation into Antifa? And I'll be controversial here. I think there should be an investigation into Black Lives Matter too. Because I would think when you get to the apex of it, or you get to the Y in the road of these groups, they're going to join into one road.
No, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that the dollars are trackable, and we know that Black Lives Matter basically became a $100 million organization overnight, and so it is a manipulation. Is it with a good slogan, quite honestly, but a manipulation from a political standpoint, driven by the far left and through the Democracy Alliance and others. Here's the critical thing, and I want to emphasize this. There are people who have good intentions, who are truly protesters, and they have a First Amendment right to assemble. They have just like people who want to reopen America had a First Amendment right to assemble, which, by the way, didn't matter to the same police departments that are now allowing people to burn down the cities with little obstruction. But there's a First Amendment right to assemble, but it's peaceable assembly. The problem is that the Antifa thugs, and you can usually see them, they're the people in the black costumes in the back who are typically white, young males who are then using their skateboards to bust through windows, who are destroying property, who are going in and using Molotov cocktails to light buildings on fire. Heck, they even went after the nursery of the St. John's Episcopal Church across from the White House that every president since James Madison has worshipped at. And yes, last night, the nursery in the basement of that church were put to the flame. Fortunately,
that is St. John's, right?
That is St. John's. Mm-hmm. And there's no excuse. And the fact that our cities, they should know who these Antifa people are, and they should have already identified them. Our FBI should have already identified them. And if those so-called regional, there used to be known as fusion centers, if those actually are real, which I don't believe they are, they would in fact have them, and they would have already been activated to go after them. The fact is the fusion centers were set up by Obama as a means of placating the left and inculcating the left into our Homeland Security system, and we've never rooted the left out of it. And not the honest left, but I'm talking about the radicals who would put a torch to the Constitution. So yeah, that's a. So, Dr. Brown, go for it.
Well, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I had to jump in. They've already torched the Constitution. In fact, we've got black robe tyrants sitting on federal benches all over this country, all the way up and including the U.S. Supreme Court, who've torched the Constitution. You've got Republicans and Democrats, presidents as well as Congresses led by Republicans and Democrats that have totally destroyed the Constitution. We're not operating constitutionally now. We've got to go back to those foundational principles that made this country great, and we're letting these thugs destroy America. They hate America. They hate freedom. They hate liberty because they're Marxist, and it's got to stop. And the only way to stop them is to lock them up and keep them locked up for a good period of time till they turn from their wicked ways. This is just evil, evil, evil running rampant all across our land. And Antifa, and I'm sure that George Soros and some of his ilk are behind it and funding it. These people, like I say, were bussed in here to Atlanta. And I'm sure there are a bunch in Gainesville, Georgia, the same way. My buddy talked to a woman in Atlanta, and she was one of the organizers. It's not just white. It's not just young white males. There are a lot of white people that are doing all this destruction as well. It's not racial at all. It's all about people who who hate America, who hate our liberty and freedom, and going to do everything that they can to destroy it. And that's what George Soros is all about. That's what Saul Alinsky's all about. That's what most of the Democrats are all about. And they've got to be stopped. And the only way we're going to stop them is make sure that President Trump's reelected first thing on November the 3rd. That's absolutely critical.
Well, and also make sure Paul Brown's elected on in a week, about 8 days. Isn't that one of the things we need to do?
You elect me, on June the 9th, just a few days away. Elect me so I can go to the floor of the House and talk about the Constitution, talk about all these bills that are totally unconstitutional.
Yes.
Try to educate.
So people understand. You're a special election. You're a special election. So when you win that special election, you are if you get 50% plus one, you are a congressman until for the remainder of the term in Congress. Is that correct?
This is a regular cycle.
Oh, is it?
It's a regular cycle election. Our current Congressman, Doug Collins, is running for the U.S. Senate. So we have 9 Republicans running. It's the 3rd most Republican congressional district in America. It's been rated as the very most conservative congressional district in America. And when I was in Congress, because I voted according to the original intent of the Constitution, I was rated by the press, even MSNBC, as well as a lot of conservative organizations, as being the most conservative member of the entire U.S. House of Representatives. The thing is, we need to have at least a majority of Republicans that are truly believing in limited government, who truly believe that government should be constrained by the enumerated powers as they were intended. People who understand that government should not be expanded under the General Welfare Clause, the Elastic Clause, and most importantly, the Commerce Clause. The Commerce Clause is actually a state limitation. It's not there to give the federal government to control commerce like they're doing today. We've got to turn all that around. In Hosea 4:6, God says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." And we have a tremendous lack of knowledge about how far we've gotten away from the Constitution. The courts are not operating constitutionally. Even Republican members of the U.S. Supreme Court that are supposed to be conservative don't vote constitutionally. The only one that does is Clarence Thomas. He's the only one.
Dr. Brown, we gotta go. We gotta wrap it up in about 2 minutes. But before I go, if you were to get a call from Donald Trump and ask for your advice how to handle this situation in the country today with the riots, with the police, as I think he should do, he should call you. But how would you advise him to handle this situation moving forward? What does he need to do?
Well, I think he needs to let the governors do what they can do and should be doing in blue states as well as red states. The thing is, where you see a lot of all this stuff going on is being controlled by Democrat mayors and governors. I heard a chief of police in, I don't remember, one of the major cities saying that people have a First Amendment right of speech to loot and burn. Now,
no,
that's
crazy. That's crazy.
Police should be fired, and he should be put in jail for inciting riots.
Unbelievable.
It really is unbelievable. And it's just, the thing is, we're being destroyed. We're having a moral meltdown in this country. I call right now for the Americans at noon tomorrow to stop for 5 minutes and pray for our nation. Pray that we can restore the foundational principles that are in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And we've got to pray for our leaders. But the governors can mobilize the National Guard. They should. They should be arrested.
Yeah, I'd like to know why they haven't been mobilized already in Philadelphia, in Minnesota, in Cleveland, Ohio, wherever this is taking place. I don't know why the National Guard hasn't been called in. Dr. Brown, you know, I always say to conservatives here on Conservative Commandos radio show that we have to support each other.
Right.
We have to find conservatives and get behind them with our time, with our money, with our efforts, with our phone calls. And it doesn't matter if that conservative is in your district or in your state or clear across the country.
Right.
We need as many conservatives in Washington as we possibly can. You and I have been friends, gosh, almost as long as I've been doing this show. You've been a guest on here. I know what kind of man you are. I know your four pillars, which you match whenever you voted for anything in Congress. And I call on my friends, our listeners, our viewers to get behind you because you are a true conservative. And if we really want conservatives representing us, we've got to get behind guys like you. Or you're not a lady, but if you were, also conservative ladies.
Sharon Angle is what I think of offhand.
Sharon Angle, that's a great example.
Right.
But please tell our listeners, please tell our viewers how they can get on the Paul Broun train.
That's
Get
right.
you back in Congress.
Absolutely. They can go on my website, paulbroun.com. It's PAULBROUN.com, COM. They can contribute. They can help any way that they can. In fact, we've got people in Texas and even California who are helping us. They've signed up to be a volunteer, and we're just days away from this election. Whoever wins this Republican primary is going to be the congressman. And so paulbroun.com. We're trying to raise money to get our next mailer out, which costs $26,000. And we don't have it because I don't have the establishment. I don't have super PACs. I don't have the folks in Atlanta or Washington supporting me because I want to take the power away from them and leave dollars in people's pockets and let people run their lives without all this government intrusion. So go on paulbroun.com, PAULBROUN.com, and at least contribute. If it's $10, $100, or $500, or $5,000, I need it, and I need it desperately, and I need it quick. They just need to use a personal credit card.
Well, I hate to do this, but I hate to get off my wallet, but I'm going to gladly get off my wallet and make another donation to your campaign.
Thank you so much, Rick. God bless you.
Well, God bless you. And one more time, website?
paulbroun.com, PAULBROUN.com, paulbroun.com. And
all right, you are listening to and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning and yours truly, Rick Trader. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Hans von Spakovsky from the Heritage Foundation. We're going to be talking about why the push for an all-by-mail election is unwise and unnecessary. Don't go away. We'll be right back with our guest right after this break.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcast of our show, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. Hans von Spakovsky is joining us now. He is an authority on a wide range of issues, including civil rights, civil justice, First Amendment, immigration, rule of law, and government reform. He's a senior fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Edwin Meese III Center for Law and Judicial Studies. Hans, welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thanks for having me back.
Great to see you again, and we've asked you to join us to talk about an article that you wrote, Why the Push for an All-by-Mail Election is Unwise and Unnecessary. A lot of people are asking that question. What about what's going to happen with these proposals that, wow, because of the virus, how are we going to vote?
Well, there's two things about this. And the first is it's unwise, and here's why it is. Look, no one disputes that we need absentee or mail-in ballots for people who are sick or physically disabled, can't make it to the polls on election day, certainly for our overseas military personnel and their families. But going to an all-mail election where everyone votes that way is unwise. Why? Well, because absentee ballots are the only kind of ballots that are cast outside of the supervision of election officials. And that means that, not only does it destroy the secret ballot, which is a long-time principle of American elections, but it makes it easy for ballots to be stolen, forged, filled out by people other than the voters, and it opens up voters in their homes to intimidation and pressure, particularly in those states that have legalized vote harvesting, which means that any third party, including candidates and others, can come to your door to ask for your ballot. Add on top of that the problems with the U.S. Postal Service. I mean, do we really want to hand our election over to the U.S. Postal Service? Think how much mail gets misdirected. Think about how often you've probably received mail at your home, right, for intended for someone else. All of those things are the reasons why we should not try to expand mail-in balloting.
It's a friend of mine, Joe Messina, does the radio show, The Real Side. He actually found a stack of mail-in ballots at an intersection in California. I mean, so what you're talking about the Postal Service, that's happens. That's just not speculation. Yeah. That is happening. That he found stacks of mail-in ballots at an intersection. Hey, he found them. Anybody could have found them. Anybody could have mailed them out. But let's talk for a minute about ballot harvesting. I got to ask you, Hans, are Republicans, are conservatives getting behind the curve that they should maybe use this as a tool in places where it's allowed?
Well, I think Republicans certainly are doing that. But I think everyone, I don't care which political party they're in, if they believe in secure elections and in protecting voters, they ought to be working to get rid of that. Look, again, nobody doubts that members of your family should be able to deliver your ballot if you don't want to actually put a stamp on it and mail it. But again, the idea that you would allow party activists, people who work for campaigns, political guns for hire, to handle something as valuable as a ballot is just a foolish policy. And yeah, if it's legal in a state, I guess you can't avoid taking advantage of it, but you should work to change that.
Well, Hans, we talked about the unwise. Now let's talk about it's unnecessary.
Right. Look, other jurisdictions have held elections under much worse conditions. Christian Adams and I recently published a study looking at what they did in Liberia in 2014. Folks may forget they held a national election there in the midst of the Ebola epidemic that was sweeping through West Africa. They did it safely and successfully. And what did they do? They put in all the kind of extensive safety precautions in the polling places that we are experiencing today in our retail establishments, grocery stores, pharmacies, etc. Wisconsin did exactly that on April 7th. Yes, the vast majority of people in the state voted by mail at the urging of a lot of folks, but over 300,000 people actually went to the polling place and voted. And again, they had extensive protocols, everything from social distancing in the lines to the use of disposable pens to mark paper ballots. I mean, it was just one thing after another like that. All the reports indicate that there's been no spike in COVID-19 infection since then. So there's no reason we cannot hold an election. Yeah, election officials will have to take extra precautions to do that, but they've also got extra money to do that because remember the CARE Act, right, which is the bill that got passed by Congress to deal with the coronavirus signed by the president. It had $400 million in it that's already been distributed to the states to be used for extra costs because of the coronavirus in connection with holding their elections.
When you talk about that election in Wisconsin with so many mail-in ballots, was there any cases of fraud?
Well, after the election, they found several tubs full of absentee ballots at a mail processing facility that had never been delivered. So that's just another sign of the problems we have there. And you know, I don't want to bore people with numbers, but listen, the U.S. Election Assistance Commission actually files a report every 2 years. This is an official federal agency on data they've collected from the states on federal elections. And one of the things they ask about are absentee and mail-in ballots. In the 2016 election, remember, the national popular vote difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump was 2.9 million. Well, according to the EAC report, the number of absentee ballots that were undeliverable, in other words, the Postal Service said, I can't deliver this ballot. There's no such address, no such registered address, or the person doesn't live here anymore, or were unaccounted for, unknown. That means election officials turned them over to the Postal Service to deliver to voters, and they never heard another thing about that particular ballot. 6.5 million ballots. 2 ballots for every one vote difference between the two candidates.
That's incredible. Hans, in your article, you have a couple of examples. In 1998, after a series of cases in Florida, the Department of Elections issued a report on persistent fraud in elections, calling absentee ballots the tools of choice of those who are engaged in election fraud. Also, in the 2018 congressional race in North Carolina, it actually went to court and a judge overthrew that election. Talk to us about these cases.
Well, the 1997 race involved the race for mayor in Miami-Dade, and the election was overturned by a judge who estimated there were 5,000 fraudulent absentee ballots cast in that election. Unbelievable amount. The 9th congressional race, margin of victory was less than 1,000 votes. The election was overturned. Why? Well, a vote harvester hired by one of the candidates, illegally, he and his staff were going to people's homes, and the evidence showed they were doing everything from filling out the ballots for the voters to forging signatures on the ballots, to forging witness signatures, to not delivering some of the ballots. So both of those cases illustrate how easy it is to do things with absentee ballots.
Hans, could you talk a little with me about voter fraud, and is it really being prosecuted?
There's a lot of cases not being prosecuted. As you know, Rick, because we've talked about it before, we've got a database at the Heritage Foundation. It's got a sampling. It's not a comprehensive list. It's a sampling of cases. We're up to about 1,300 proven cases from around the country. But I know of many cases that are not in our database because local prosecutors and others aren't interested in investigating them, aren't interested in prosecuting them. So that's very unfortunate, and I'm afraid that sometimes it encourages those who are willing to take advantage of the vulnerabilities in our system to do so.
All right. Our guest this segment is Hans von Spakovsky of the Heritage Foundation, and you are listening to and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We'll be back with more with our guest right after this break.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The secret war is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And once again, welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And our guest this segment is Hans von Spakovsky of the Heritage Foundation. We're talking about why the push for an all-by-mail election is unwise and unnecessary. Hans, thank you for holding through that break. And I know Rick Manning wants to jump in this conversation. Rick?
Yeah, Hans, well, welcome to the show, and it's good seeing you again.
Thanks.
Wanted to ask you, we're now 20 years away from Gore v. Bush, the big fight in Florida. Remind people what happened in Florida, the margin of victory, and kind of how that kind of evolved as we into a bunch of people looking at ballots and hanging chads and all that kind of stuff, and the danger of basically turning it over to an all-mail election rather than having people actually go to the polling places.
Yeah, a lot of folks, the majority of folks today don't even know what a punch card ballot is, which is the way they voted down in Florida. But look, the margin of victory in the presidential race was a little over 500 votes because Florida was the key state in the Electoral College. And that is a very small number. But the thing is, we have elections in this country decided by a handful of votes all the time, particularly at the state, local, and county and city or town council level. I mean, it happens all the time, which is why just a little bit of fraud can make a difference. And think about this. In the 2000 election, the margin of victory is a little over 500 votes. After the 2016 election, a nonprofit down in Florida did a very interesting study. It's the Government Accountability Institute. They compared Florida's voter registration list and voter histories with a number of other states, and they found 2,200 Floridians who had not only voted in Florida in the 2016 election, but had also voted in other states, which of course is highly illegal. That's what, 4 or 5 times the margin of victory in the 2000 election. So, things haven't really gotten a lot better, and it shows you how in a close election, and that's of course the key, fraud could make a difference. And again, remember, 500 vote difference in 2000, and yet in the 1997 mayor's race in Miami that we just talked about, the judge estimated there were 5,000 fraudulent absentee ballots.
Yeah, one of the classic cases that I know you're aware of was in Minnesota, which is in the news right now for other reasons. But I always think of Minnesota as being clean elections and all that. But Republican Norm Coleman ended up losing his seat, I believe, to Al Franken back in the day. And he lost it after the 3rd recount, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us a little bit about that process and some of the suspicions that many of us had related to that election. And oh, by the way, that was the 60th vote that caused Obamacare to pass.
That's right. Boy, I tell you, if you want to see the value of the statement, every vote counts, all you got to do is look at that Norm Coleman, Al Franken race. I think there were almost 3 million votes cast in that election. Al Franken, after almost a year's worth of litigation, was declared the winner by less than 300 votes.
Wow.
And part of the issue was that it came down to a lot of absentee ballots. And the thing about absentee ballots or paper ballots is that, folks don't always mark the little bubble next to the name like they're supposed to. Sometimes they'll check mark the name, or they'll try to circle it, or they'll underline the name. So a lot of times you get into disputes trying to figure out what the intent of the voter was. And they kept coming up with absentee ballots that initially had been rejected by election officials. And the Al Franken lawyers made a lot of arguments that these votes should be counted. And if you look at the patterns of what happened across the state, what you find is that counties that were controlled by liberal Democrats tended to be very loose about applying the state rules and laws, whereas the counties controlled by more conservative Republicans, tended to be very strict about following the law. The other thing about that race is that after it was over and Franken was declared the winner, a local grassroots group did some research and discovered that 1,200 felons who had not yet gotten their right to vote back had voted in that election. That's 4 times the margin of victory in the case. If those felons had not voted, Al Franken might not have been declared the winner in that race.
Because obviously we don't know how anybody actually voted. We just know that they did vote. And so that's why we can't say that. Well, let's bring us to more modern history. You know, we're talking about 2018. We saw ballot harvesting, legal in California, illegal in North Carolina. Right. The North Carolina seat gets thrown out, yet the Democrats ran the table in California with people like David Valadao in Hanford, California, ahead on election day by over 5,000 votes. But the late arriving votes just kept coming and coming until he was no longer a member of Congress. And while I'm not advocating for David Valadao, who wasn't my favorite member of Congress, the bottom line is it seemed odd that it seemed like all of the late arriving votes all seemed to be marked for the Democrat. Is that a phenomenon that you've? It's certainly a phenomenon that causes us to pause. Did you observe anything related to the California, how the Democrats kind of manipulated this system to win elections?
Well, the whole problem with vote harvesting is that, for example, and there's actually a doorbell camera video out there of a woman coming to a household in Southern California, apparently working for the Democratic Party, and saying that she was there to pick up an absentee ballot to deliver it, but only for Democrats. And of course, that shows part of the problem here. Members of either political party could pick a neighborhood that is the opposite political party and go through there and collect ballots and then make sure they're not delivered. And the thing is, look, normally the people who vote in person, the ratio, the winning ratio is about the same as the absentee ballots. If there is a huge difference, in other words, if one candidate's winning 60-40, and all of a sudden the absentee ballots are 100% for his opponent, that's usually a sign that there's something going on, including potential fraud. That was something that happened in St. Louis a couple of years ago in an election there that got overturned because of those kind of problems in the absentee balloting.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we haven't talked about is why voting in person is important beyond the idea of the security of the ballot, beyond the idea of trying to avoid fraud. It seems to me there's something about casting your vote in person that connects us to our elected officials. And essentially when you disconnect, when you say, oh, just mail it in or give it to some clown who's walking around, it devalues that vote significantly and the importance of it and the seriousness of it.
I agree with that. I think it helps knit us together as a country to have this one day where everybody goes to the polls and votes. I think that's very important. And look, the other thing about it, which we haven't talked about, is this. Keep in mind that if you have an absentee ballot, you may vote it literally weeks before Election Day. Well, what does that mean? That means if some kind of information comes out about a candidate, a scandal, we all know that kind of information sometimes comes out right before Election Day that is relevant to the choice you made. Guess what? You can't change your mind. You can't take back your vote. And that's particularly damaging during primaries because if you want an example of that, all you got to do is look at the Super Tuesday primary we had in March before the whole COVID-19 problem started. We had, Rick, more than a dozen states, right, with their primaries. And what happened just before the Democratic presidential primary on Super Tuesday, Senators Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg both dropped out of the race a day and 2 days before the election. If you look at the vote totals in those states for mail-in or absentee ballots and early voting, you find literally hundreds of thousands of votes were cast for the two candidates who dropped out of the race, those voters couldn't change their mind and take that vote back because they had voted weeks before the election day. Again, that's not good for voters. I don't think it's good for the system that we have.
Our guest this segment on the Conservative Commandos radio show has been Hans von Spakovsky from the Heritage Foundation. Hans, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. Please tell our audience how to follow your work, find out more about the Heritage Foundation, and to read your articles.
Sure. Well, Heritage is the largest think tank actually in the United States and I think the world. They can go to heritage.org and they'll find issue papers and commentaries on just about every subject, including election integrity, which is what I work on.
All right. Hans von Spakovsky, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Thanks for having me.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. Rick and I will be back with more right after this break.
Mom, thank God you're going to be okay.
So relieved. But you both should know when my time comes, I have a final expense policy with Senior Care USA.
Is Senior Care USA the life insurance policy that helps loved ones pay for funeral expenses and other debts? Bill and I called to get more information.
Yes, and there's an immediate payout of up to $50,000.
If you're over 50, call Senior Care USA now to learn more about final expense insurance plans.
There's no medical exam, even if you have a pre-existing condition like I do. When I called, the quote was free, and there was no pressure.
I found out that policies start for as little as 35 cents a day. Rates will never increase and coverage won't decrease.
I'm going to call today.
Ask about the free prescription discount card. Oh, I'm so glad you'll be taken care of.
Call 1-800-822-7419. That's 1-800-822-7419.
But is it? It's really just the beginning, right? Have you written a book and want it published but don't know where to start? You're not alone. Page publishing cuts through the confusion that most new authors face, like copyright protection, barcodes, printing, and digital uploading. We will get your book into bookstores now. We guide you through the publishing maze and help you distribute and sell your work in hard copy and ebook formats. That's right. We will digitize and place your book for sale on Amazon, Apple iBooks, and Google, offering it to millions. Don't waste another minute. Most publishers won't even look at new author submissions, but we're different. We review your book and provide you feedback in about a week. If we decide to publish your book, your work ends and ours begins. From copy editing and proofing to typesetting and book cover art, our team gets you into bookstores fast.
Call 1-877-461-5033.
Does your current bathroom need to be updated immediately? Introducing one-day bath and shower remodeling. The complete and hassle-free way to get the new bathroom of your dreams in as little as 1 day. And for as little as $1.99 a month. Yes, the experts at One Day Bath and Shower Remodeling will come to you anywhere in the country and show you all the customized options. Now you can have a brand new bathroom in as little as 1 day. Large or small bathrooms, if you want a new bathtub or shower installed, we can do it in as little as 1 day. And if you call right now, you can save $750 off your remodel. We make it easy by offering you financing as low as $199 per month. So for as little as $199 a month, you can finally have the bathroom of your dreams. Call now to schedule your free in-home consultation.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcast of our shows, check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. Be sure to like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Our next guest is Jack Hanney, and he is the CEO and owner and the senior partner at Patriot Gold Group. Jack brings a wealth of experience from 20 plus years in finance and 5 years in tech. Jack's vision of a direct-to-consumer approach to investing is safe haven assets. Physical gold and silver has been recognized by Consumer Affairs, rewarding Patriot Gold Group as the top-rated gold and silver self-directed IRA dealer nationwide for 4 years in a row. Jack, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you for having me this afternoon. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, because when I've got the email today with the information about your topic, topsy-turvy bailout leaves little incentive to go back to work. Jack, that hit me in the heart, because I thought, why should anyone want to go back to work? I hear the people are making more on unemployment than they would be at their regular job. Why go to work if you're being paid to sit home?
They're making upwards of 100% more on unemployment, with the 600 additional per week by the Fed that Congress passed. We have 40.8 million unemployed Americans. So 40.8 million unemployed Americans, 68% of those are earning more on unemployment than if they were to return to work. With the $600 per week federal plan that Congress passed, in addition to your average of $370 per week unemployment benefit, you have restaurant workers that are making $1,000 a week when on average they were making $500 a week prior to being unemployed.
Jack, I heard a story of a woman who owned a business in Atlanta, Georgia. She got one of the government bailout grants, loans, whatever you want to call it, was very excited about that. Called her employees with the good news. They got mad at her. They didn't want to go back to work. They were really mad and angry at her.
Well, these unemployment benefits are extended through July 31st, so that's another 2 months. And now with everything that's gone on the past few evenings, and with concerns over the spike in cases, Congress is right now proposing an additional $3 trillion relief bill that would extend these unemployment benefits probably through year's end. So what they're hoping for, Congress and the Dems, is that the unemployment rate is up over 20% going into November. I mean, it's as obvious as can be that they want a high unemployment percentage going into November.
Jack,
I think you're exactly right, Jack.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolute insanity. They're not going to return to work when they can binge watch Ozark at home on Netflix. They don't have to return to work. They can be home with their kids, and they're earning twice as much as if they were to return to work.
One thing that's clear is President Trump has said that has recognized that this is dumb. It's bad policy, and it's bad for people to be dependent upon the federal government for long periods of time. And so what was supposed to be a safety net has been turned into a hammock in this instance. And as we get our businesses going back to work, they need these employees to come to work. And so it's one of those challenges. Tell me, how would you address this? I know President Trump has said has issued a kind of a not formal veto threat, but he said he opposes continuing this. Nancy Pelosi has passed through the House that $3 trillion additional stimulus package. The Senate hasn't dealt with it, and I don't think they're going to deal with it. But what solutions do you have? What would you think about doing under these circumstances?
Well, they need to curtail the unemployment benefits for one. They need to put a definitive time frame and stop extending them. Because these employees, we're a consumer-based economy. So they contribute to our economy, to our GDP. They contribute to consumerism. When they're just receiving these unemployment checks and they're at home and they're not spending the money and they're earning more than they would be if they were to return to work, we have to not incentivize them to go back to work, we have to de-incentivize them from continuing not to work. So what we really need to do is there needs to be a definitive time frame as to when we're going to discontinue at least the additional $600, because the $370 per week might be just too little money for them to continue to live on. But the additional $600 per week, that should run out by the end of the month, and everyone should get back to work.
You know, Jack, you mentioned a figure of 40 million, over 40 million unemployed. To me, that are just staggering numbers that I think don't you have to go back to 1929 to find that kind of unemployment?
Even in 1929, the unemployment figures were about 10 to 15%. So we've far surpassed the numbers back in 1929 and 1930. Now with the 40.8 million unemployed Americans. And the big concern was how sudden this was. I mean, mid-February, stock market's at all-time highs, unemployment's at 50-year lows. 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, we have unemployment spiking to 50-year highs in a matter of a few short weeks.
How does an economy ever recover from that, Jack?
Well, I'll let. Did you want to answer as well?
Well, I was going to ask you a different question, but I'll weigh in on that. But why don't you give us your answer and then I'll chime in, okay?
As far as our economy recovering, these were headwinds that we could not foresee. And it's like Trump said, where the cure has been far worse than the pandemic itself. Shutting down our economy for the past 10 weeks. You look at the restaurant business, hospitality, small business owners, retail. You look at, sports. You look at, the PGA, the MLB, and the NFL. So as far as our economy getting back on track, it's something that I think, that's a very difficult question to answer, because we're in such unprecedented, uncharted waters that I can't imagine how long this recovery can be, because it's what's happening now over the past week has only postponed any type of economic recovery by another 4 to 8 weeks, because most businesses were planning on reopening this past weekend, and now they find themselves vandalized, looted, shut down, and it's unbelievable what's going on.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is that you've hit upon is we do have individual states that are reopening, and one of the focal points that I've been going after is I've got a website, reopenamericannow.org, where people can send a note to their governor, to their state legislators, demanding that they reopen their state. States that are reopened, like Florida, Texas, states that are Arizona, Oklahoma, there's about 20 of them that are really aggressively reopening. They're going to have a tremendous competitive advantage, because what we're seeing is there is pent-up demand. There's a lot of pent-up demand, and people who are employed have basically husbanded their resources in such a way that they're going to spend them rapidly. And that was the whole intent of the stimulus that they did back, the initial stimulus they did, was to give people enough money in their pockets so they would have to spend once it was reopened. The surprise here was that it stayed shut so long. But so the challenge really is with the attack on the basis of capitalism by the Antifa mobs that have taken over. These are no longer protesters. Many of them still have good intent, but there are Antifa elements that are in fact causing the damage, and anybody who shows up is essentially allowing themselves to be used by these people. That's where cities like New York City, LA, San Francisco, Dallas are all going to see a problem. And ironically, apart from Dallas, most of those cities were places where they didn't anticipate opening up in any great degree right now anyway. So they're merely going to see the outside on their main streets, they're going to see the outcome of what they did to the inside of Main Street, which was kill it.
Yeah. Well, one thing I can say in regards to that pent-up demand, even speaking for myself personally, my wife cannot wait for us to go out to dinner. I was looking into some type of travel in August for my wife and daughter and I. So I do know, speaking for myself personally, that when things do open up, I'm looking to contribute to our consumer-based economy by going out to dinner.
You're going to do your part, huh?
I'm going to do my part. And you're right. Georgia reopened, other states reopened. You haven't seen a spike in the cases. And I think that's one of the things that'll refute this whole media frenzy, fear-based doom and gloom that they're trying to perpetuate, is that the economies can reopen. So restaurants can reopen, small cities can reopen. We can start reopening our economy. And that's what we need to be doing. We need to be doing it now.
Right.
Absolutely.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is Jack Hanney. He's the CEO, owner, and senior partner at Patriot Gold Group. And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show. My co-host today is Rick Manning. So you're getting Rick and Rick. Hey, Jack, we have to take a quick break. Could you hold on for just a few moments for us, please?
You bet.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show. Don't go away. We'll be back with our guest right after this break.
Attention homeowners. Do you have a house that's in need of serious repairs? Do you have tenants that never seem to make their monthly payments? How about code violations, past due taxes, or maintenance costs you just can't afford? Then call my friends right now at Quick Cash Offer. They specialize in buying any home, no matter how ugly the situation. Turn that problem property into cash right now. It's just that simple. One call and you can get rid of that home headache forever. They buy the ugliest houses with instant closings, instant cash, and huge savings. Plus, there are no realtor fees, no listing fees, and no repair costs. Just cash in your hands for that painful property. They're buying a few more houses in your neighborhood this month. So take advantage of this cash offer and call Quick Cash Offer now.
855-296-8854. 855-296-8854. That's 855-296-8854.
Listen carefully. If your student loan debt is overwhelming you and things seem hopeless, we've got great news.
If you're still struggling with your student loan debt, there are government programs available that may actually lower your payments by consolidating your federal student loans. Just call us. We'll review your situation and work with you to consolidate your debt. In many cases, depending on your situation, we can lower your monthly payments in half or more. It doesn't matter how much you owe or how far behind you are. Even if you're in default, call us right now to find out how we can lower your payment in half immediately. You can stop the harassing phone calls and the wage garnishments. All you need to do is pick up the phone and call us right now. We can remove your default status, consolidate your federal student loans, lower your payments, and we can do it today. Stop worrying. This is a real solution that can help. So please call us right now.
Call 800-917-8671.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you and all seniors from the Final Expense Insurance Hotline. The average funeral costs about $7,000, even more. And the most government benefits will pay your family is only $255. That leaves your loved ones with a burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay up to $30,000 for your funeral and other final expenses. There's no medical exam and you'll have lifetime coverage. Plus, your rates will never increase and your plan cannot be canceled regardless of your medical condition as long as you make your premium payments. Get free information right now. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 855-221-7334.
Do you have an idea for an invention, but you don't know what to do next?
How do you get in front of companies or get a patent?
Call InventHelp. They've been helping inventors just like you for 35 years.
And thousands of people contact them every month.
With 65 offices, you can meet with an InventHelp representative near you who will keep your idea confidential and explain their invention process step by step. InventHelp has helped over 10,000 inventors get patents. And they offer 3D animations and prototyping services to help demonstrate your idea. InventHelp's exclusive databank includes over 9,000 companies who have agreed to confidentially review new ideas, like yours.
Don't wonder what to do next. Take action right now and get the help you need from InventHelp.
InventHelp. Call today for free information.
800-880-2937. That's 800-880-2937 now.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning. He is the president for Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And want to give a shout out to folks who are listening to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California. Also seen on the AUN television network in San Francisco, Sacramento, San Jose, all the way up to Redding. Our guest this segment is Jack Hanney. He is the CEO, owner, senior partner at Patriot Gold Group, and we're talking about the topsy-turvy bailout leaves little incentive for people to go back to work. And Rick Manning, why don't you pick up this conversation with our guest?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rick. This is it's actually a real treat to be with you. So I just want to say this is fun. Jack, we've talked in the first segment, we talked about the employment implications and need to get people back to work. And obviously those small businesses need those people to return to work in order to be able to open up. So it's a chicken and egg situation. And people need to be incentivized to go back to work. And that means they can't be disincentivized by the government paying too much money for unemployment. Having said that, the government's is now thrown $2 trillion, more than $2 trillion at this problem. And Nancy Pelosi wants to throw another $3 trillion at it. And on top of that, there was another $800 billion that was spent. And we were projected to be $1 trillion in debt anyway. So we're talking a lot of trillion. That's a lot of zeros, 12 for those of us who are counting. What does that do to the dollar? And what does that do to how the stability of the dollar and the ability to actually invest in currency versus harder assets?
Well, I had received an alert on my iPhone on Friday of last week, and it said Jerome Powell and the Fed is comfortable with the $7 trillion coronavirus response, price tag. $7 trillion. Wow. Now, the previous administration quadrupled our money supply with $4.5 trillion back in 08 and 09 during the subprime mortgage crises. What we saw from 08 to 2011, gold went up 166%, silver went up 440%. Reason being, this adversely, significantly devalues and debases the purchasing power of the US dollar. When you print $7 trillion out of thin air, it adversely and significantly devalues and debases the US dollar. And we're running into a period here where we could be jeopardizing and threatening the US dollar being the dominant reserve currency globally. Many have speculated that the yuan could become the dominant reserve currency or some type of gold-backed, digitally based currency. But we are looking at China and Russia moving away from the US dollar. And the US dollar, as far as being the dominant reserve currency, I think we've really entered a time frame where it will no longer be the dominant reserve currency in the next 5 to 10 years.
And that's a point I wanted to talk to you about a little bit. Brazil, Russia, India, and China for the last 10 years have had something called the BRIC alliance that was attempting to knock the dollar off as being the world reserve currency. As we know, it's a world reserve currency because of petrodollars. Dollars are, Saudi Arabia sells oil based upon dollar denominations. As America's become energy independent, Saudi Arabia becomes more dependent on other people to buy their oil. And as a result, China has some leverage there in terms of that, to try to change the petrodollar, which changes everything. So given that, and given the fact that we're not even talking about the $4.6 trillion we were going to spend when we're only bringing in $3.5 trillion this year, we're looking at a pretty massive, up to $30 trillion, our national debt being $30 trillion this year alone. Given that, and given the challenge to our dollars, can you explain why the world reserve currency matters? Why that allows us to effectively pass our inflation around to other countries around the world, so people understand why that matters, and when that goes away, why that really matters?
Well, one of the reasons being is because the debt we've accrued, we can simply print more dollars because it's in US dollars. And that globally, being the dominant reserve currencies, goods and purchases and oil primarily are all purchased and then converted to US dollars. So the US dollar, having the dominant reserve currency, really secures and solidifies its dominance as a global power. Whereas what's happened now is China has introduced the petro yuan and set up the Shanghai exchange, where the petro yuan can be easily convertible into gold. And that's what most are very fearful of and concerned of. And there's even speculation that there's not so much trading stations, but around the US right now in place where yuan can be easily convertible into gold and the US dollar. I don't know if you've heard about that at all, but I mean, what we're looking at right now is globally, you have China and Russia moving away from the US dollar. You see them selling massive amounts of US treasuries and accumulating stratospheric positions of gold. Central banks around the world have added more gold to their net reserves in the past 12 months than at any other time since 1967. So that tells you something. And they're looking to move away from the US dollar and away from the US dollar and the dominance of the US dollar.
And given that, and given the fact that China, let's just be honest, China unleashed a virus on the world. Whether they meant to or not, we don't need to argue, but the fact is they exported the virus, and they did mean to do that based on their travel policies. And so they unleashed this virus on the world, and they've spent the last 3 months, while the world basically shot our economies in the head, China has done everything they can to try to take advantage of this situation by bringing their economy back, not caring if the virus continues in their economy, and bringing their economy back rapidly, and seeking to usurp the United States' role in the world, literally all over the world. And this threat, they've taken on Hong Kong, and basically taken over Hong Kong, which eliminates a free market zone. They are aggressively seeking dominance in the world. So it would be foolish to assume they are not going to go on an all-out attack on the dollar. And when we have to put out $4 to $5 trillion in order onto the market to be sold, it's reasonable to assume that the interest rate on that is not going to continue down in the 1% range, and instead will begin to escalate. And just as kind of a wrap up on this, what's happened to countries like Greece or Argentina when they're no longer able to finance their debt at a reasonable interest rate?
Well, you see that with Greece, you see that with Portugal, Greece, Italy, Ireland, Spain, you see it with Venezuela. And what's going on now, I don't believe China will be successful in what it's threatening to do here now with Hong Kong, with our US-China trade deal. I do believe that, as we've always before end up being victorious, we're just going through a very challenging period. I think a lot of manufacturing jobs are going to come back to the U.S. as a result of this. So I'm hoping to see a resurgence of manufacturing here in the U.S. I know manufacturing output posted its biggest decline since 1946 just last month. But I really hope that we go from being just a consumer-based economy to more of a consumer and manufacturing-based economy. And I think that's the lesson we take from this, and I think that's what we're going to learn from this. And I think rebuilding our infrastructure, bringing manufacturing jobs back, made in America, I think that's really how America solidifies its stance of making America great again.
Thank you, Jack. That's perfect. We really appreciate it. Rick?
Yep.
Hey, Jack, before I let you go, I do have a couple of quick questions. You know, you said that gold's going up 168%, silver 400%. Is there any money to be made in gold and silver?
Well, that was back in 2008 through 2011. Forecasts for gold right now are surpassing $3,000 an ounce, and that's Bank of America Merrill Lynch that doesn't have a pony in the race. BofA Merrill Lynch is forecasting gold to surpass $3,000 an ounce in the next 18 months. It's currently at $1,740. Now, the street forecasted silver to surpass $50 an ounce in the next few years, and to go as high as $150 per ounce in the next 5 to 7 years. Mm-hmm. Silver's right now currently trading at $18.40 an ounce. $18.40. It's the same price it was back in 1976. So the upside opportunity and potential for silver right now is the investment opportunity of a lifetime. Upwards of 90% of our clients moving forward are diving headfirst into silver right now and doing precious metals backed self-directed IRAs entirely in silver.
Jack, for people that are really afraid of the volatility of the market, who don't know a lot about the stocks and bonds, and frankly don't know a lot about gold and silver, give them a little bit of it. Give them a little advice out to how to find out more about gold and silver.
Well, just go to www.patriotgoldgroup.com. We have a learning center there. Request our brochure on the homepage of our website. We also have it in the media section where you can see my interviews. You can see my radio interviews or listen to my radio interviews, watch my television interviews. But we have a learning center. We have the charts. We have the graphs. I mean, if people are a little concerned with the volatility in the stock market, just wait. Wait until the Q2 GDP numbers come in the first week of July. Wait till this Friday when the May jobs report comes in. I think we're going to retest the lows we saw in March. And I really think that there's quite a bit of volatility ahead for us once the ripple effect of shutting our economy for 10 weeks and then what's currently going on really starts to gain some traction as far as when we start seeing earnings come out. When we see our GDP, earnings, the jobs report, and employment data, we're going to start getting a really better, we're going to be able to look under the hood. Mm-hmm. Right now we have, it's all surface. We see what's going on, we hear what's going on, but it isn't until we have earnings and until we have the GDP numbers come out and the jobs report come out, do we really take a look under the hood and see what's going on.
Jack Hanney, CEO of the Patriot Gold Group, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Jack, before you go, one more time, how can they find out more about the Patriot Gold Group?
Go to www.patriotgoldgroup.com or call 1-800-974-GOLD. It's 1-800-974-GOLD.
Jack Hanney, again, thank you so much for joining us on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Take care and God bless.
God bless, Rick and Rick. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
And you are listening to and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning and yours truly, Rick Trader.